Only 3 wings have gone first overall in the NBA draft. LeBron James, Glenn Robinson, and David Thompson. This year, the position is stacked, maybe not with the best player, but a lot of potentially strong players headed off to the NBA. Seth Davis, you have watched these young men throughout their career, so give us your top 5 small forwards.
Well, suffice it to say there's no LeBron Jameses or David Thompsons in this crop, so lower your expectations, everybody. But I think the best small forward in the draft is Otto Porter from Georgetown. Not everybody has him rated as the #1 small forward. I do. I think he's actually ahead of where his fellow Hoya Jeff Green was coming into the league. Whether he becomes as good as Jeff Green at the next level remains to be seen. Followed by Shabazz Muhammad, the old freshman coming out of UCLA. Victor Oladipo from Indiana, very athletic, a little undersized for the position, but certainly just shot up everybody's draft board from the start of his junior year, followed by Deshaun Thomas coming out of Ohio State. And finally, I have C.J. Leslie from North Carolina State. He was not able to participate in the Combine in Chicago. He injured his hand during a workout, but it's not something that should affect his status moving forward. NC State had a very, very disappointing season, Ray, as you know, but C.J. Leslie is a guy who can play inside and out, very athletic and long. I think the scouts are going to give him a real hard look.
Certainly, as we take a look at your list, let's start with Otto Porter there at the top. A guy who's thin, needs to mature a little bit maybe physically, and also work on his perimeter game as well. So any concern that he's going to be able to compete with these bigger bodies of the NBA, and if he's able to get his shot, then even make it if he gets
Well, you know, it's interesting. What used to be called a tweener or a positionless player, at the college level, we always thought of these guys as matchup problems. Now, if you look at the NBA, because so many of these players have come into the league, that a tweener is not as much of a knock as it's been in the past. Otto Porter is a guy who is just a really good basketball player. If you try to put someone who is stronger and slower on him, they will have a hard time guarding him on the perimeter. He showed this year he can score from behind the three-point line. If you try to get up on him and jam him, he can blow by you. He's a good athlete, very high basketball IQ. He's a guy who did not play basically any AAU basketball coming out of high school, so he was not corrupted by the culture that we see too often in grassroots basketball. I just think he's a really talented, intelligent basketball player who's going to be, maybe not quite an all-star in the NBA, Ray, but someone who can be a starter and be effective and help his team win.
Victor Oladipo spent his career at Indiana, I guess technically as a guard. You even alluded to undersized for the small forward position at 6'4". How difficult, how challenging would it be for him to make that transition to the #3 in the NBA?
Well, you know, one of the things that you hear scouts and NBA folks talk about in evaluating prospects is they ask the question, can he guard his position? So the answer with Oladipo is yes, and the small forward position, of course, is the most difficult position to guard in the NBA. So in that sense, I think he's a very, very attractive draft pick. As far as the offensive end, Ray, I'm not convinced that he's going to be a real high-level scorer in the NBA. His three-point percentage went up drastically from his sophomore to his junior year at Indiana, but when you watched him play, he was still a guy who needed to be pretty much wide open, get time to set his feet, get in a rhythm to be able to get his shot off. I think he's going to have to transition to the shooting guard position at the NBA, and he's going to have to develop that part of his game. But the thing about Victor Oladipo is it's amazing to talk about him as a lottery pick right now when coming into his junior season, he wasn't on anybody's top 100 list. So that's how far he's come because of his work ethic. I see no reason why he can't continue to develop after college.
Shooting is not a weakness for one guy not in the draft this year, and that's Doug McDermott from Creighton. Did he make the right call by going back? And if he were in the draft, where would he be on your list?
Well, from a basketball standpoint, I would say he did not make the right call going back to school, just because I don't see him drastically enhancing his draft position. We know what he is, what he can do. In terms of his own life, I think it was a great decision for him. I mean, who among us wouldn't want to go be a senior in college again? So I say more power to him. It's great for college basketball. Looking at this list, I would put him 4th in the small forward category. So behind Oladipo, but ahead of Deshaun Thomas. I think he does a lot of the same things that Deshaun Thomas does, except for scoring and shooting from deep. That's something that Deshaun still has a little bit of a weakness in his game. I think Doug McDermott's going to be an NBA player once he gets through with Creighton. And for college basketball purposes, I'm thrilled that he's coming back.
That's great. All these guys coming out early. It is nice to see one of the stars stick around one more year. Seth Davis, thanks very much. To hear Seth break down the other positions, check out the other videos only on CampusInsiders.com.